Welcome, everybody, to yet another Blue Jays Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network, along with Robin Tillerman. I'm James Price. And look, we got a lot of things to cover. To Will Wagner's MLB debut, a very memorable one. We'll talk about Chris Bassitt's very questionable comments. We'll dive right into that thing. And of course, as we mentioned in the last show, we were heading down to Buffalo. We'll talk about the experience. We'll talk about what we saw in Buffalo and all that stuff. Let's get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, well, Rob, we can dial right into this right away. But you know what? First off, buddy, it's only been a couple days since I saw you. But I know you and Mo are dialed into your trip coming up. Tell the people at home what yourself and Mo, who runs the Blue Jays Center page for the most part, which you guys got cooked up.
Yeah, so for those of you who noticed, we're doing a little bit of an earlier show this week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
We don't really record. It's usually like a Thursday or Sunday show unless we have to move it around. But the reason why is because I'm heading down to Wrigley for the Jays Cubs series, going to 2 games there, and then doing something cool up in that area. Heading to Milwaukee to catch a Brewers game, headed to Lambeau Field, do a stadium tour of the Packers. You know, me and Mo are both big football fans, so that will be pretty cool. But the brunt of the trip will obviously be seeing the Jays at Wrigley. It's going to be, I think, the 4th or 5th stadium I've seen the Jays at this year, the road stadium. So I've seen Kansas City, Detroit, Seattle, and now it would be Chicago. So it'd be the 4th one. But it'll be pretty cool, man. I'm pretty jacked. I've been to Wrigley about a decade ago, so it'll be cool to go back. Definitely one of my favorite parks that I've ever been to. I've been to, I think, 16 total. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been there if I wasn't going out west to Alberta. Shout out Luke Combs. You'll see me at Country Thunder. Can't wait for that. And then tour around Banff a little bit. We were busy boys. We're busy boys, but we got to make time.
We'll definitely try our best to work around the clock, get some good content in for our very loyal listeners. Yeah. And we're going to have quite a show today, Pricey.
Well, speaking of good content, watching Will Wagner in like 9:38 first pitch, it's always a disaster, right? You're always like, holy crap. Like, and I say it in my videos, give me a reason to stay up that late, for the love of God, on a work night. And Will Wagner did that. A 3-hit day. Was it the 4th Blue Jay in franchise history to have a 3-hit day on his debut, and made a couple of really nice defensive plays as well. Yes. Just an all-around really nice debut for Will Wagner.
It's a whole lot going around there. I think I saw a stat. I have it right here, actually. I think he surpassed his dad's all-time hit total. Is obviously Billy Wagner, the closer. I think he had 2 career big league hits. 2 career big league hits, 853 career games. So Will Wagner already passing Pops. Hopefully, you can have somewhat of a similar career to Pops from an offensive standpoint as a hitter. But this was an awesome start, Pricey. Awesome start to a big league career. We actually, coincidentally, we saw Will Wagner just a couple days ago in Buffalo. We'll talk about that a little later. But it's nice to see him making an impact at the big league level. He's the other shoe of the Yusei Kikuchi trade. You know, obviously, we hear Jake Bloss. He was the headliner. Joey Loperfido. We've seen him a little bit at the major league level, albeit not all that pretty so far, but Will Wagner, the third piece of that trade. And so far, it's been an excellent start to his big league career. Obviously, we all recognize 1 game, 4 plate appearances. Long way to go, but a great start for the kid. He's a guy that you're hoping to get some reps so far through the rest of 2024 to see how much of an impact you can rely on him to make in 2025. So I'd love to see it. Like you said, a reason to watch. We talked about Vlad ad nauseum last episode, and Will Wagner add into the list of reasons to watch the 2024 Blue Jays. It's slightly growing.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up here for a lot of the younger viewers or listeners how good Billy Wagner actually was. Like, dude was actually nuts. He pitched in 853 games, had an ERA of 2.31, had a total of 422 saves, and in 903 innings, had almost 1,200 strikeouts as a closer. Yeah, he was incredible. And like you mentioned, yeah, the hit total, good for him. He's already passed Pop, so he's got that all over him. I just loved his approach. You know, he went up there first inning, or for his first at bat, with a plan. I'm looking for something to drive. And he got it right away, and he crushed it to the gap. It was over 100 miles an hour to the gap, gets the double to lead off to get his first hit in the big leagues. And then just professional approaches, right? You hear that with Spencer Horwitz all the time. And let's be honest, he had a 3-hit day. Great. You can't expect that all the time, right? Obviously, Spencer Horwitz came on guns a-blazing and he's going to hit a wall. They're going to figure out what Will Wagner, is not good at or what his weaknesses are. And it's up to him to find a way to adjust. But hey, can't complain. A 3-hit day in your debut, hit the ball hard a ton. And I mentioned in my video last time. I don't know about you. You saw you saw that really nice play made up the middle on that like
second base,
short.
yep.
Did that not give you like Ryan Goins vibes of how smooth that thing looked? It was beautiful, and his bat to ball skills is just off the charts. I don't know. I'm excited to see what this is moving forward. But as you mentioned, kind of like the last piece in that trade, Jake Bloss number 1, Joey Lopervito kind of number 2, and he's been as a Blue Jay. And Will Wagner, the kind of like the forgotten piece, and he has been really good. Now he's 26 years old, kind of the Spencer Horwitz mold, but you can't ask it for anything more. The 3-hit day in your debut.
That's actually where I was going to go, the Spencer Horwitz comparison, because when the trade was made, we had our whole trade deadline episode. That was a comparison that we identified right away. You have like basically that same archetype of player, a lot of on base, not a lot of power, but ultimately projects to be a pretty good hitter at the major league level. It's an interesting piece. But the question is that, okay, well, where exactly is he going to play? And if you remember the Spencer Horwitz question at the beginning of the year, it's that he's having this great season, but he's somewhat blocked. And then he comes up, he's a second baseman, and we see him hold his own at second base for the most part. I mean, obviously, I don't have the metrics in front of me, how well he's actually been, but for the most part, I would say Spencer Horwitz has done a decent job out there. And it was interesting to me when we went to Buffalo on Saturday, he started that game for the Bison at third base. So right away, I'm thinking, they're giving him reps at a premier position where they need help at the big league level. Maybe this is a precursor to him getting called up. And obviously, 24 hours later, we hear the news that he's on the flight to LA, beating the team at Anaheim, and in the starting lineup at second base. So it was pretty cool there. And hoping for a lot more good days from Will Wagner going forward, because like we mentioned so many times on this podcast throughout the year, this ball club and this team is just desperate for good stories out of the farm system. So hopefully Will Wagner, a major part of the biggest trade of the deadline, can be just that.
Yeah, and he did say was it JSOC Plus that Blake had him on. Basically, I think it was the day before or 2 days before we went down. Yep. And Blake asked him, what's your, like, out of all the positions you play, what is one you feel most comfortable? And he said second base. Now, from watching yesterday's ball game, that seemed very evident. And you're watching a guy like Spencer Horwitz kind of like just really play. He doesn't look comfortable. Like, he's made some fine plays, sure. But defensively, there's some issues. There was one play in the finale against Oakland, and holy crap, what a disaster that was. But he knocks
the backwards play, the one he tries to go behind his back,
yeah. And it's like him and Bassitt in between on who's going to get the ball. Then Horwitz ends up getting the ball and doesn't look and just kind of flicks it in behind him, and it goes over Bassitt's head, and that's how they score the first run of the game. So again, I'm not going to blame Spence on one play. I'm not going to say he's a bad defender because of that, but you put him at second base because you needed his bat in the lineup. That was the whole talk about why Spencer Horwitz was there.
He was out of position. We all recognize that.
You needed some offense, and that's fine. But now you have a guy who more or less is the most comfortable at second base, giving you the same sort of tools offensively. Now, it's only been one game, not going to overdo it, but it's a good start. That's all I got. Let's be honest, buddy. He's playing the freaking Angels. And that guy on the mound, he ain't no prime Justin Verlander, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, like, we haven't really introduced a tankathon topic because that's just not a thing that's really that
a weird one,
common in baseball. Sure. I mean, who knows? I mean, at some point, I'm sure we'll probably address it because there's just only it's 2 months left and only so much content to do with this team. So I'm sure it'll come up at some point in one of our future episodes. But if you look at all the tankathon, the teams that are below the Blue Jays, the Angels are right there. They are one of the few teams, one of the handful of teams that are actually worse than the Blue Jays. So that tells you all you need to know. Take it with a grain of salt. This is a really bad Angels team. They were a really bad Angels team when they had Shohei and Mike Trout for the last few years. Now they're a really, really bad Angels team. So, take it with a grain of salt. You mentioned that's correct.
Yeah. And so there's only 3 wins behind the Blue Jays, and we still play them 6 more times. 6 more times. Get a 4-game.
Oh, yeah. Yesterday was the first game we played them all the season. That's
4-game at home, and then 2 more on the road. And a little caveat for Blue Jay fans, if like you mentioned the tankathon, I'm gonna quickly say one thing. Yes, the Chicago White Sox are 29-91, And yes, they beat the Yankees 12-2 yesterday.
They can't get a first round, top 10 pick.
They can't get a top 10 pick. They will not have it. So just like that, that wipes the White Sox right out of that conversation. Which, if you're a White Sox fan, I freaking apologize.
God,
I don't feel sorry for you. I don't apologize. I feel sorry for you because, oh my God, you're having to endure this.
That's a topic for another day. This White Sox team, it might be the worst team ever. It might be the worst to ever do it.
29-91, Rob. They might not even win
hard to
40 games.
That's hard to do. I mean, think about it like this. I don't know if the line has been moved, but I remember from a few years ago, like replacement level was like 49 wins. Like if you just had 25 replacement level players, you would have like basically 0 WAR. That's what replacement level is. 26 roster spots, all with 0 WAR. You'd have a 49 win team. So it's like the fact they have a collective team below replacement level, it's insane. It's just frankly embarrassing for major league standards. That's the ball club they're running out there. And obviously, no disrespect to the players. I'm sure they're going out there doing their best, trying to make a living. But the White Sox organization, that's a really tough look for them.
It's comical. It really is. And watching Luis Robert just completely flounder, and that he's been so bad for them this year. Anyways, enough White Sox talk. I just wanted to say it because they can't keep their freaking pick. Let's get to something, Rob, a little more interesting.
A little obscure, right?
Yeah, because we all watched that Oakland A's. Well, I mean, if you did, you tipped the cap to you. But at least you watched the first inning. You saw Chris Bassitt flounder. And if you really watch the game, as we usually do, he was missing down the middle a lot. And I go to the first at bat of the ball game that really showed me everything. He's up 0-2 on Lawrence Butler. Great spot to lead off the game. He throws a 90-mile-an-hour cutter right down the middle. And it gets drilled for a double. Lo and behold, a 6th spot in the inning. And he ends up allowing 7 runs in his outing, right? I think he allowed all 7. Or 7 runs. Yeah, something like that.
I'll find out right. Yeah.
Regardless, he had a 6-run first inning. The offense is never going to come back from that. Let's be honest about it, even though it's against the A's. And after the ball game, you'd expect a guy, especially with Chris Bassitt's prowess, a guy who's been around the world and done that, to be like, I didn't have my stuff today. I was not locating this and that. But he had something else that he wanted to say, and it was
roll the clip.
Quite interesting. Shane, got that for us?
Post. Completely different than roof being open. Wasn't really ready for it. My worst sinkers with the roof open around 16. Best sinkers around 22. Today, worst sinkers were 13. Best sinkers were 15. So I had to completely change my mechanics to kind of get the movement I wanted. This is just a different one. Obviously, indoors is indoors, but this is it's different.
Okay. So we're blaming the elements. We're blaming the people at Rogers Center for opening the roof. I just what?
Yeah.
Take it away, Rob. I've never heard this before. It's crazy to me.
So this is a perfect segue to my Stat Genius segment. We're going to talk about how much Chris Bassitt has actually dealt with the elements all season long and how he's been. If these comments actually make sense to what he's actually pitched so far this season. Roll the Stat Genius segment. So before we give our actual thoughts on the situation, I thought it'd be nice to give some data. Chris Bassitt, obviously, we all know the Rogers Center. It's closed first couple months of the year. It rains occasionally. Any Blue Jays starting pitcher will have decent experience pitching with the roof closed, and that's been the case for Chris Bassitt. Prior to this start, he had pitched 7 games this season with the roof closed at Rogers Center, and the elements really weren't an issue up until this start, apparently. If you look at through the data, he had an outlier outing. April 26th against the Dodgers, he got shelled. 2 2/3, 9 hits, he got 7 earned runs. Outside of that, the other 6 starts, it's been pretty neat and tidy. You have a 35 in the third innings, 11 earned runs. That works out to an ERA in the 270s, a Ks per 9 over 9, which is better than his season totals, and a sparkling 1.18 WHIP, well below his season total. So, and even if you factor in that Dodgers start, 38 in the third innings, has an ERA of 4.23, which is lower than his season total. It's par for the course, nothing outlierish about it. A 1.36 WHIP, again, right around where he's been all season long, and a Ks per 9 even higher than the one with the roof with the roof closed. So he's got a Ks per 9 well over 9. over that. So basically, all this data suggests that Chris Bassitt's been fine pitching with the roof closed. And not to mention that this is a veteran pitcher. This is a guy who pitched at Rogers Center last year for his home games. This is a guy who, for the most part, all season long, we've talked about him just being a dog on the mound. That's what was nicknamed, the Bassitt Hound, because not only is his name Bassitt for Bassitt Hound, but he's a dog on the mound. We've seen him take a liner from Aaron Judge on the forearm and still stay in that game, refuse to come out. We've seen him basically in post-game conferences like this be very adamant that he's not happy with the way this team has been performing. Chris Bassitt, in my estimation, is the least likely guy that you'd hear him make an excuse like this, to the point where I actually feel a little bit of sympathy for him. Like maybe the elements that day were just so bad for him. But at the same time, he was saying that he wasn't prepared. And if you listen to that clip, he was saying he wasn't prepared to pitch. I don't know about you, Pricey, but up here in Aurora, I'm not sure I was a little down south. You're a lot closer to downtown than I am in Scarborough, but it was a bit of a gloomy day. I mean, it did clear up a bit around the 1:00 game time, but it was raining a bit in the morning. And I'm like, okay, well, the roof's probably going to be closed today. The fact that you weren't expecting it to be closed, I don't know. I don't think that's a valid excuse for a guy like Chris Bassitt and unusual sorts. Like I said, you wouldn't expect the guy to make these kind of excuses. So I'm a little dumbfounded, to be honest with you.
I am too, and for different scenarios. First off, he had that horrific first inning. That's one thing. He then went 3 innings of allowing only 1. So he clearly figured something out as the game went along. Him and Pete Walker, if you've watched the game, they were all over the iPad and whatnot. And also, hey, you're not playing the Dodgers. You're playing the Oakland freaking A's. And yeah, the Oakland A's may be able to hit some home runs. They're 5th in baseball in home runs. Take that in for a minute. Shout out Brent Rooker for that. They're 26th in runs for, 25th in hits, 26th in average, 26th in OBP, 17th in slugging. Good for you. 18th in OPS. Again, this is all based off of the home run ball. Their offense is pathetic.
Yeah.
So regardless of the elements, if you're Chris Bassitt, a guy who's been around and done that and been oh my, what happened there? Do you see me, Rob?
Yeah, I see you. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, my screen just went off for a minute. That kind of scared me for a minute. Anyways,
no, you're good.
You're playing against Oakland. Regardless of elements, if you're a guy like Chris Bassitt, who has pitched in big games, who's pitched in big moments, who's pitched it in probably horrific weather, there's no excuse. You can try and make one, which he did. But the only thing I will say is that baseball is a mindset game, right? It's all, not all mental, but it's like, I'd say about 80% mental. And when you go to a start thinking the dome's going to be open and then it's closed or vice versa, I mean, it really shouldn't affect you. Yep. So I don't know where this came from. I was confused when I heard about it. I honestly think he just tried to make an excuse for getting teed off on by the Oakland A's. It just seems that way to me.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just not likely source. I mean, who knows? I think being what Chris Bassitt's track record is and how what we all feel about him. We're all very content with the way Chris Bassitt has pitched so far in his Blue Jays career. I think it's fair to maybe chalk this one up as a one-off. This is not a guy who's typically makes excuses, so don't want to put too much. Don't want to dump too much hot water on the guy. I'm sure that he's had a rough start against a bad team that he was expecting to do better against his former team too. We forgot to mention that. So who knows? Post-game comments heat of the moment. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Sure. Now, Tracy, anything else you want to touch on before we move to the mailbag?
I don't know if these are in the mailbag because you cooked those up, but Vladdy's hit streak obviously ended. Unfortunately,
we can talk about that quickly before we.
Okay, so yeah, obviously hit streak ended at 22 games. Unfortunately, however, he then countered that with getting on base 3 times yesterday and getting 2 more hits. So that's the way to do it.
Right? Double, starting a new hit streak. Got to start out right the next.
And
day.
that double,
so, love to see it for Vladdy.
See what that
he did. Was? He had a double off the wall.
No, I know, but where that pitch was.
Oh yes.
Holy crap!
Play coverage, yes.
My God, that gives me Zach Britton of 2019 vibes. Anyways,
exactly. Yes.
And the last one, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's there, but Bowden Francis.
No, it's on the mailbag.
Look, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to say, dude's a
stud now
all of a sudden. Well,
but you're doing it.
No, you're doing it. Damn it. No, I can't because I've seen too much shit Bowden Francis. However, his last 2 outings, Rob, have been outstanding. And the last one against the Baltimore Orioles, 5 innings, 3 hits allowed, 2 runs. 1 walk and 7 strikeouts, 7 punch-outs through 5 against that Orioles lineup. And, oh, by the way, yesterday, 7 innings of 1 hit ball. 1 run. There's the home run, the solo shot. Didn't walk anybody and struck out 8. And again, it's Angels. I know they're pathetic. They're horrible. But the stuff looked good. The stuff looked genuinely good yesterday, which I'm trying not to get my hopes up. But Mo wanted us to ask this. Is he a legit 5-star at this point? Like, I know it's only 2 starts, and I know one was against the pitiful Angels, but he looked really
so because
good.
you opened the can of worms, I dug something up. I'm not sure I want to mention, but because you opened it, I think Bowden Francis, I looked at the numbers. Since his second start of the season against the Yankees, it was that first road trip of the year, if you recall. He has like an ERA somewhere in the 3s with like a decent whip and like batting average against of like 250. The FIP is like it's not terrible, like he's been somewhat competent since his first few starts of the season. Obviously it's you have the Orioles start. You have obviously the Angels are not the greatest team, but he had a good start against Cleveland too. Cleveland's a really good lineup. I think sometime in the middle of June he did really well against them too. So I don't know. I mean, is he a 5th starter? I would say no. I would say I doubt it. I mean, all the stuff that we talked about early in the year about the questions that we had about him. I'm not confident saying Bowden Francis is a legitimate 5th starter. Pencil him into the rotation for next year. But I mean, can he be a major league caliber pitcher? I think he's kind of proving that right now. I think I see him as like a decent like long man / hybrid guy. You have Yariel Rodriguez. Has his pitch count goes up early. He's got to be out in 3 innings. Maybe you have Bowden Francis bridge the gap. That's as far as I'll go. It's impressive what he's done, but I'm not sure I'm ready. I'm not sure I'm ready to take that leap.
No, I get that completely. And also, we're all about sample size, right? You want to see it for longevity. And look, he had 8 strikeouts yesterday. He had 7 in his last outing. His season high in strikeouts after that was 7 against Houston on April 1st. And then he had that, 5
in a game he got shelled.
Exactly. He was horrific in that outing. Yeah. And then he had 5 strikeouts in that bad Yankees start. And since those 2 outings, he has not struck out more than 4 guys in an outing.
Right.
Now, he's not been out there for very long, so that could be something as well. Yep. But I don't know. I just thought it was exciting, and he looked really good yesterday. What does it mean? I don't know.
Good for him. Because early on in the year, we were talking about, are we sure Bowden Francis is a major league caliber pitcher? And I think at this point, he's built enough equity where, okay, he deserves at least a look. He's going to be their 5th starter until Jake Bloss takes his spot. Hopefully, the next couple turns of the rotation. And I just see him being like a long man / swing guy. I think that's as far as we go. But credit to Bowden Francis for carving out his big league career. We talked about coming into the year. He's an unknown commodity. Maybe, who knows? He sticks around with some other team or with the Blue Jays as sort of a depth starter. So, yeah, good for him.
We'll see. So, Rob, I think
we're ready to move into the mailbag?
You want to go mailbag now? All right, let's cook it, bud. What do we got?
Let's do it. Okay, so we have a couple mailbag questions. We've had a couple good ones. One of them is, and this is very pertinent to what we're going to talk about. It's a little precursor to our on the farm topic. Rydog 49234 or 234, I guess, asks who is the best current prospect that we got at the trade deadline, Jake Bloss or Jonathan Clase. 2 guys who we talked to on Saturday. We'll talk more about that later. But ultimately, to answer the question, who's your guy, Pricey? Who's your pick?
On this team specifically, it's got to be Jake Bloss. This team has lacked, I don't want to say developing prospects. Well, they have pitching prospects, but however, Jake Bloss is pretty much already seasoned and in AAA now. Yeah. However, they've lacked young talent coming through the organization, let alone signing free agents. And with the uncertainty of like Kevin Gausman moving forward and Chris Bassitt, right? And obviously now Kikuchi's gone, and you think about Jose Barrios and his ups and downs this year. He was great last season. He had a really good April this year. Yep. But can you consistently get? You don't know, and you obviously don't know the future of Alek Manoah. So a guy like Jake Bloss is a very important piece of the organization. Now, obviously, Jonathan Clase, we'll get into him, and I want to talk about him, but we'll talk about him in the On the Farm segment. He's got tools that this team doesn't have. So I'm excited to see that. And they could, if he pans out to what he is, supposed to be or could be, then he could be that. But for me right now, it's Jake Bloss. I think there's no doubt about it.
I'll agree with you and also simplify it a little bit more further. I think Jake Bloss he's just a legitimate top 100 prospect. He was a guy who was the headliner on a big trade. Whereas Emmanuel Clase, big league ready guy, he's got some very interesting tools. We did this again. Did this again. Jonathan Clase. I'll get it right. I promise I'll get it right. He's got some interesting tools. He's a big league ready guy. Obviously, the
Yeah.
speed. He wrote a couple doubles, and we'll talk about that
Yeah.
on the farm segment as well in that game that we went to. But I think that Jake Floss, being that he is the top 100 prospect, being that he is a guy who many experts already classify him as a mid-tier rotation starter right now. I think that the fact that whereas with Jonathan Clase, if he's going to be the fourth outfielder mold next year, you'll be happy with it. If Jake Voss is anything but a late rotation starter as soon as next season, I think it'll be a disappointment. I think that's how much of a legitimate prospect he is. We got to see him on Sunday. He looked pretty good in his Buffalo debut. So yeah, I think that he's a guy who should be getting the call pretty soon. I think that he's on the cusp of getting that big league call, maybe a couple more seasoning starts in Buffalo to get his pitch count up because he was on the pitch count. But I think he's going to be a guy who very shortly is going to make his Blue Jays debut at the big league level, and hopefully he'll be a staple for many years moving forward.
Yeah, hopefully.
That question the answer kind of segues into the next question.
Okay.
Question is from Liam Luzino. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Says young player most optimistic for in 2025, and I'll just piggyback off my last answer. Jake Bloss. He's the guy who's going to be, like I said, going to get a look this year and hopefully be a staple in the rotation in 2025 and moving forward. So yeah, I think that's who it is. Jake Bloss for me.
Yeah, I would go the same way, but I'm gonna go a little different. I'm gonna change it up a little bit, be a little different.
Variety.
Yeah. Is it a little favoritism? Possibly. A little Allen Road, baby. Obviously we saw him, good plate coverage, good plate discipline, walked twice in the outing that we were there. And then lo and behold, on Sunday, he goes deep. And his numbers he is skyrocketed. The last
for everyone, by the way, we just posted the interview on Blue Jay Center on Instagram. Check that out right now. Interview with Pricey, with Pricey that way, with Alan Roden, the Blue Jays 8th ranked prospect. So it's a really good interview, really great guy. So check that out. We just dropped it right now.
So that's my guy. All right.
Cool.
Well, we can jump right into the on the farm because let's be honest, the Jays stink, and the only thing left to talk about is on the farm, and it's what's the future of this team. All right, Bert. So
I want to ask you before you go into it. So we've done the Buffalo thing a couple times on Saturday. It was your first time. Yeah. I just wanted to ask your opinion now that we're here on camera in front of the audience. What was your whole opinion on the thing?
It was awesome. The Bisons, shout out to the Bisons. They were outstanding to us the entire time. Really accommodating. We needed, if we wanted to talk to somebody, they made it happen, and it was. They were just awesome to us. I think that's why we continue to go back. And for me, obviously first time doing it, I was a little nervous, but Alan, obviously great guy and just a really good interview. So it made it a lot easier for me, but it was a great night. I mean, I think we can both agree, other than the border guy, it was a great day all around.
We don't need to go into that story, but yeah, I would agree. Pat and the whole Buffalo Bison's crew. Yeah, it's been an incredible time. We've been a few times this year, and hopefully we keep going back. And we've gotten a lot of really good sound bites. We got to talk to, obviously you mentioned Alan Roden, Jonathan Clase, and Jake Bloss. We tried to get Joey Votto, although it was a little tough. Although I will say the aura of being around a future Hall of Famer, just walking around doing Joey Votto things, that was pretty cool to be a part of. So yeah, shout out to the Bisons. Anyways, let's dive right into the On the Farm segment.
Let's do it, buddy. Let's do it. All right. Well, as we all know, half the top 5 guys are hurt. So let's go to Jake Bloss, the guy we've been talking about all this time. And we saw him on Saturday make his AAA debut with the Buffalo Bisons. And he pitched 2 2/3, smack on 50 pitches. That was the pitch limit going into the game. So he went 2 2/3. Other than the early command issues, I think we can agree he had a little bit of command issues to start the game in the first, but really settled down, went 2 2/3, 3 hits, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. And I believe one of those hits was a little infield single as well. So I liked it, man. The velocity was around 94-ish, 94, 95. It was in that range. And he looked confident out there.
Yeah, I would agree. And like from the post game scrum that we did with him, we got to ask him some fun questions. It'll be on the Blue Jay Center page if you check that out. We posted a couple of clips from that. I can't remember gentleman's name. I should be I don't want to misquote him, but I think he did ask the guy who was with us in the Buffalo scrum room that is it kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge? This is kind of a precursor to the big league level. And Jake Bloss basically said, I don't want to misquote him again. I don't want to be falsely aggregated, but he was basically saying that, if you pitch as well, you should be able to get a shot, pretty much sooner rather than later. That's the kind of vibe I got from him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what he was saying was basically, something along the lines of, and if you guys tune into the interview, you'll hear that part of it where he pretty much said that, Ross wanted him to build up the innings, build up the pitch count, and that he'd get a shot. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, and he also mentioned quite a few times, I think, in that, obviously getting results too. And so game 1, I think 2 2/3, 50 pitches, no runs, had a couple strikeouts, lost command, but then found it. It's very important stuff. So I'm very impressed in his first outing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Moving on to do we have Jonathan Clase too?
Yeah, let's go, Jonathan Clase. Let's go to the next one because let's be honest, again, no one else is playing, or they're up in the big league level, right? Yeah, Jonathan Clase. So obviously we had a chance to talk to him. Mo, shout out to Mo, had that interview cooked up. And the first thing that jumped out to me is, I'll go a positive and a negative. One, the bat speed's crazy. Obviously 2 doubles when we were there, and they were doubles with ease.
Yep.
But on the negative side,
one of them was 101 off the bat. Just want to get out there.
Was that?
One of them was a 101 off the bat.
Yeah,
just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So it was great stuff. However, I did notice a few things that were on the not so great side. One was I don't want to say tracking the ball, but
he had a bad read. He had a bad read on one of the balls.
Yeah, no, the wind was horrific that day, so that could have played a part in it. But he went back initially quite a few steps, and then had to basically sprint in to get the ball. I don't know if that was wind related. It probably didn't help, but that was that. And also base running. That's the thing we talk about with him, right? We talk about dude's got blazing speed, and that's awesome, right? That's absolutely awesome. We saw him round third and go back to third and almost get, thrown out at third backwards. I'm like, okay, easy. And then we saw him try and steal third and get thrown out by a mile because his jump was really, really bad. And that was, I think, with 2 out, wasn't it? It was a 2 out. You're already in scoring position. You're going to score in a single. There's really no need to steal third. He attempted it, got thrown out by a mile. The inning was over. So there's a couple negative things, but man,
tools are there. There are tools.
We talk about it, right? What can you not teach? You can't teach speed. You can't teach pop. And he had 2 doubles, and you could see he's flying around out there. So it's a good sign. I wanted to go on both sides of it there.
Oh, and also one interesting tidbit. We'll drop the clip. Probably when he gets called up. I don't know if Mo wants to save it for then, but Mo asked him, and shout out to Mo, by the way, first ever interview, did it through an interpreter. That's a difficult situation. He handled it professionally. He asked him the Jonathan Clase's top 5 favorite Dominican players, and Vladdy was one of the 5. That's a little precursor, a little hint there before we actually drop the clip itself. So that was pretty cool.
No, yeah, could be a teammate soon enough. That'd be really interesting.
We'll be a teammate soon enough. We'll be.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he's not. All right, next guy, right at number 8, Alan Roden. We talked about him already. Again, we had the great interview with him. Awesome dude. You guys can attest to that. He was a great guy. Dude's been on fire since, I don't know, God, his number since August 1st. So it's the last just under 2 weeks. He's hitting .333 with a .402 on base. And his season numbers with the Buffalo Bisons, we talked about it for a little bit there where he was like royally struggling to get his feet underneath him. He's now hitting .269 with a .374 on base, a .408 slug, and a .782 OPS, just like that. And look, he's a 24-year-old outfielder. He's a big dude. I mean, what is he? 5'11". I mean, I'm short as hell, so I guess it maybe felt larger than to me, but it's fine. Again, Rob, he didn't do a whole lot in the game that we were there, but did walk twice and came around to score one time. What'd you get from Alan Roden in I guess I don't know if you saw him before in Buffalo,
yeah.
but
no, this is actually the first time I got to see him as well. He seems to follow the archetype of a contact first hitter. Obviously you mentioned high on base guy, a lot of contact. The pop, who knows? Hopefully that'll come. But that seems to fit the mold of the guys that the Jays are targeting. They're targeting a lot of guys who can put the ball in play and move around. And I believe in the game that we went to, I think that he had I think he had a walk and then he had a hit that he was robbed of a hit, but it was a nice swing on the ball. It does feel as though he's kind of going through the farm system. I'm not sure if he'll be a 2024 guy, but I do expect that he'll make an impact in 2025 at some point.
I think definitely.
especially considering that the team. Let's face it, we went through the skeleton of the 2025 roster right now, and we said, you have Vlad Guerrero at first base, you have Dalton Varsho in center, and then all of that, it's kind of up for grabs. I think that he's a guy who can really compete for a job and everyday playing time as soon as next year. So definitely interesting to see him in person for the first time. Like you mentioned, great dude. So I'm rooting for him, hoping for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's get to some guys that we didn't get a chance to see in Buffalo. And this one guy that I've been kind of locked on since last year, and he was hurt to start this season, Kendry Rojas, plays for the Vancouver Canadians now. He started the year with Vancouver, had 2 outings, but then on the shelf till late June. Nothing from him. Obviously had to build up a little bit. Was in the Florida Coast League for a game, then pitched in Dunedin for a game, and then right back to Vancouver, where right now he's supporting a 2.51 ERA as a left-handed pitcher. He's only 21 years old. And his last outing was, I think, the best of his season. He went 7 innings on 3 hits, 1 run. It was a solo shot, walked 1 and struck out 10. He was outstanding. He's got a whip of 1.14 down there right now. And other than the injury this season at 21 years old, he's a 6'2 lefty. I don't know. It's exciting stuff, man. His stuff looks electric. His fastball, if you look at the scouting grades, I think, what's it? Is it 30 to 80 or something like that? Or 30 to 70?
I believe it's 80. I think 80 hit tool is
Something
the
like
highest.
that. Yeah. So anything over kind of like the 50 range is like, hey, it's pretty solid stuff, right? You know what? Let me compare stuff. So Jake Bloss, for example, has a 55 fastball, 55 curveball, 55 slider, 40 changeup, 50 control, and 50 overall. So you go down to Kendry Rojas. I love saying that. It's great. He's got a 55 fastball, 55 slider, a 45 changeup, 50 control, and a 45 overall. So again, very similar.
Tools project to be big league caliber, yeah.
It absolutely does. And his ETA is 2025, but I'll believe that when I see it. But he's been outstanding since returning to Vancouver. So that's a very, very positive sign. Speaking of positive signs, right? Charles McAdoo's got a freaking hit button. Holy smokes. About damn time.
Get it.
He had 2 hits there. They had a doubleheader on the 10th, which was that Saturday when we were down in Buffalo?
Saturday, yeah. It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yep.
He had 2 hits, a double, scored a run. Good on him for that. So it's good to see him starting to get going there in New Hampshire. But you want to touch on either of these guys that I've talked about?
Charles McAdoo, that's interesting because another friend of the show, so it's pretty cool that we're getting in touch with all these Blue Jays prospects. Yeah, he was really struggling the last on the farm segment that we did. I think he was like 0 for 17, over 17 was it? Yeah, when he was. So good to see him get his feet wet and get some results going. He's a guy who, like we mentioned, contact player throughout the organization. He's kind of the opposite archetype. He's a power guy. He's a guy who mashes, and we needed more of those. God knows this Blue Jays team needs more of those. So nice to see Charles McAdoo after a rough start, kind of turning around a bit. It's good to see. Good to hear.
Yeah, there really ain't much else going on the farm, but I'm going to be blatantly freaking honest with you. No, actually, no, 2 things. 1, Yohendrick Pinango. Obviously, one of the pieces acquired in the Nate Pearson deal. Josh Rivera continues to stink, and he's bad. We talked about him. It was only like 4 or 5 games when we talked last, and he had good numbers. Now he's up to 8 games, which again, manageable sample size, but he's hitting 296 with an 848 OPS. He's got 5 doubles in the 8 games to this point, and walk to strikeout rate of 3 walks to 7 strikeouts. Got 4 RBIs in the 8 games, and you go back to his AA numbers in Chicago, he had a 661 OPS. So the numbers weren't all that great there. And in the 8 games he's been in with New Hampshire, they've been fantastic. So that's a good sign. And also a little shout out to our, again, friend of the show, Desan Brown, who, put up a really good season with Vancouver, played 74 games, a 774 OPS, arguably a career year, right? You look at his numbers. He had a pretty good year in Vancouver in 2022, but only for 40 games. So they wanted to put him there for a full season where he struggled last year with a 624 OPS. But man, 774 this season. And with that being the case, he gets the call to double A New Hampshire. Now he struggled there to start, but again, who the hell cares? He's up there. He's only 22 years old in double A. So that's something to keep an eye on. So congrats to Desan for the call up there. Got anything else there?
No, I think that's pretty much it for the On the Farm segment. Obviously, in terms of recapping the series coming up, we got a couple more games here against the Angels, and then obviously, like we mentioned earlier in the show, out to Wrigley, where I will be there with the team as well. Going to be exciting. The last time we've been to Wrigley was 17, I think it was, where we got swept. I remember that. I remember they got swept.
Are you guys be there for all 3, or what's your plan?
No, we're gonna be there for the Friday and Saturday for sure. The Sunday one, little scheduling conflict. Probably not gonna end up going there, but who knows? You know, we know us in spontaneous trips. Who knows? We might be able to fit that in.
Who
We'll
knows?
see. We'll see how that goes. But definitely Friday and Saturday for sure. I think Kevin Gosman's pitching on so it's Yariel on
So
the
it's
Friday and Kevin Gosman on the Saturday.
Yariel versus Justin Steele. So that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah.
It's 2:20 first pitch on a Friday. And then Chris Bassitt versus Kyle Hendricks. And Kyle Hendricks is not the Kyle Hendricks we used to know. That's for damn sure.
It'll be cool to see them get a win. I think Wrigley's the only stadium I haven't seen them win at. Like not in person, but like in terms of like my overall fandom as a Jays fan. I think they've won everywhere else but Wrigley. So it'll be cool to get the Wrigley one out of the way. I'm excited for that one for sure.
That's great stuff, buddy. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for the show. We've done 2 shows in like 4 days, which is kind of crazy for a team who's, 10 games or 9 or 10 games under 500 with not much to talk about. But here we are. Chris Bassitt giving us sound bites. So for myself, James Price, Robin Tillemon, appreciate you as always coming on, bud. And for Shane, behind the scenes, appreciate you, bud, for all the stuff you did today. We'll talk to you guys soon.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.